Well, welcome everybody to the May 2025 AACE-CSRA section meeting. Tonight we've got a very interesting speaker for you, Mr. Dexter Justis. After 24 years at Tennessee Department of Transportation, Dexter is now the Region 1 Director of Project Management, responsible for oversight of regional roadway design, right-of-way, utilities, etc., to deliver capital investments and system preservation projects in the easternmost 24 counties of Tennessee. Dexter graduated from University of Tennessee in 1999 and 2001 with BS and MS degrees in civil engineering. Please join with me to welcome tonight's speaker, Dexter Justis. Dexter?
All right, thank you, Brad. I really appreciate you having me out and speak about what is a really important project for East Tennessee region and quite frankly, the entire state. I will give a lot of background into this project's history, what we're intending to do with the project, or how we're intending to get to solutions on the project, and our timeframes and timelines as we march forward. That being said, we'll jump right in. All right. So again, there's the agenda. We'll talk about the history, the traffic congestion, modernization that has happened throughout the corridor, bottlenecks, which is a traffic issue in its own, challenges through the project, and then our project approach to, like I say, tackle the issues. The history of this project is, as you can see, with the early background there, showing the early stages of what interstate construction looked like. It's definitely very different than what we see today. The amount of equipment they had out there, the way they just dove into the earth and started tearing it up and moving earth around is much different than the construction that we do today. So going back to the start of the interstate system back in the 50s, 1955, the Yellow Book came out that described where the interstates would be, how it would crisscross the country. And then in 1957, they identified numbers for those interstates. And interesting enough, I-40, which is one of the superhighways that connects not just Memphis to Knoxville, as it says on my slide there. It actually runs from LA all the way out to Winston-Salem and to the coast of North Carolina. So it's all the way across the United States, right in the middle of the country, and it connects both coasts. But also, interestingly enough, here in Knoxville, I-40 merges with I-75, which runs from, as you know, some of you on the call were just talking about Miami earlier, runs from Miami, basically up the west coast of Florida, into Georgia, through Atlanta, up through Chattanooga, crosses through Knoxville on a 17-mile section where I-40 and I-75 are combined, and that's the project limits of this project. And then continues north out of Knoxville up through Kentucky and Ohio and all the way up into Detroit. So you have two major interstates that are big freight movers that are combined for a 17-mile section through West Knoxville. So that's what the project is all about, is that 17-mile section. And today, hundreds of thousands of people use this section of interstate daily. These are the drawings from the Yellow Book back in the 1950s that show what ended up being I-40 coming out of Little Rock, Arkansas into Memphis, on over to Nashville, and then on over to Knoxville, and going right through Knoxville. Obviously in the Yellow Book, like I said, at that time they didn't have interstate numbers, but that is the same interstate. And then you compare that Yellow Book image to what Knoxville looks like today, and you can kind of see that small bypass that goes around Knoxville called I-640 that pretty much looks very similar to what the Yellow Book said it should look like, right? Now it took many years to implement what that interstate structure looks like, but that was the genesis of the beginning to where we are today. So this is a little more zoomed out view, I showed you Knoxville just a second ago, and you see that bypass, I-640 bypass. But the limits of our project is really to the far west of the screen there, the left of the screen, if you will. You can see I-40 and I-75 merge at what we call a directional interchange. And then it runs 17 miles to I-640. Are y'all seeing my pointer?
I see it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it might be just mine. I'm gonna come out and come back in. I don't know why it's not showing, but that's fine.
okay. But the I-640, I-40 intersection on the west side of Knoxville. So it's 17 miles from the directional interchange in Loudoun County to the east of the left of the screen to right here in the middle of the screen. So it's 17 miles. Let's see. So, and this is kind of the timelines of how this was built out. Here in the late 50s, project construction started on the far west of the screen and ended up in Knoxville. By 1965, we had this section of interstate built. Now, then as time moved on, we start doing interchanges and some improvements and some widening there from the middle 60s to the early 80s. I will say we widened from what was a 2-lane on each side of the interstate to a 3-lane through the majority of this, and sometimes 4-lane in parts of it as well. But you also see where we updated a couple of the those areas. 1981 I-40 and I-640, that bypass I talked about, came into existence in 1981, which was the year before the Knoxville World's Fair. If any of you remember that, that was built and largely was intended to be in place right before the World's Fair came to Knoxville in 1982. Pellissippi Parkway, which is another interstate that runs north to south through the middle of the screen right here, come on board in the late 90s. So we had an interchange with another interstate come into the middle of the corridor. And as I scroll on through, we started having more interchange modernization happening in the late 90s and into the 2000s. So as this corridor grew and expanded, the interchanges that were here became underutilized, and we realized we needed to do projects to make the interchanges work a little better, so we'd have better lower friction values and better movements of traffic through the corridor. So you can see multiple interchanges: Gallagher View in 1996, Cedar Bluff in 1993, 2003 for Level Road, and Paper Mill in 2003. And the latest one that we did a little bit of expansion on was Campbell Station in 2015. But as Knoxville continues to grow, it is one of the fastest growing mid-size cities in the United States. It has ranked as one of the 20 fastest growing affordable cities in the country in the past couple of years. This was in 2023, 2024. It was also listed as one of the cheapest places to live. It receives high marks for quality of life, housing, amenities, environment, transportation, all those good things, cost of living being one of the ones that we enjoy most here in East Tennessee. A lot of things going for Knoxville and the state of Tennessee in general. And as you know, there's been some mass exodus to the south in recent years, whether it be those things that were just mentioned, cost of living, taxation, all those kinds of things. But we are seeing historic growth in Tennessee, and Knoxville is being one of the biggest beneficiaries of that. Interesting enough, U-Haul and Pods, we track some of their usage, and in 2023, Knoxville was rated as the number 17 U-Haul location and the number 7 Pods location for one-way movements. So one-way U-Haul trips to Knoxville ranked number 17, and Pods were number 7 in the country. Traffic through this area is quite high. This is a map of the state of Tennessee. And most people countrywide or even here in the state of Tennessee itself would believe that the highest traffic values or traffic numbers would happen in Nashville. And sure enough, they do have pretty bad traffic congestion issues in the Nashville area, but they don't have an interstate that has higher traffic numbers than this one. You can see the top 10 traffic count locations throughout the state, and you'll see 1, 2, 4, and 5 are located in this 17-mile stretch of I-40 and I-75 here in Knoxville. And here's what the values look like. So here in the eastern part of the corridor, we're seeing 205,000 cars a day. It's more recently been measured in the 212,000 cars a day. And the highest one they have in Nashville being just under 200,000 cars a day. So a lot of people are really surprised to see that that's the case. And again, 4 of the top 5 in the state are happening here. Congestion, obviously, lots of cars breeds congestion, but which is indicated by the ADT, average daily traffic. But as it's commonly looked at on GPSs, right? Everybody brings up their GPS and tries to see what traffic looks like before they leave. And this is not a current live view, but one just a random snapshot of when traffic is flowing well through the corridor and around the corridor. But you got RAC right here at the far east side of the corridor at the I-40, I-640 interchange, some issues, even on what we would consider a good day. But this is a typical Tuesday morning AM peak. So the AM time frame, 7:45 to 8:15 time frame. The morning isn't terrible. You see a lot of yellow, not a terrible amount of red. But these systems will do a lot of what's called lane averaging. So if you have 4 lanes going through a section and 2 of them are moving because they're going in a direction or not a direction, but a split that is ideal, it will average it into a yellow when you may have 2 lanes of traffic that are actually sitting there stopped. So we know how the data is collected, and we can see some of the issues. While this makes it look like it's a little better than it might be, we know where there's red, there's actually more red there than is shown. But the AM peak is not the issue, the biggest issue. You see in a PM peak, which Thursday is the worst day for travel because that's when truckers are all on the road. They're trying to get home for the weekend. And Thursday PM peak in most cities is the worst day. So you see a typical Thursday afternoon, it's almost gridlock, especially eastbound through the entire 17-mile corridor. Like I say, modernization from the time frame that I started the presentation with till today is pretty extreme. And we're not unique in this way, but it's definitely worth understanding history and how things got to be. You can see this is the directional interchange where I-40 and I-75 come together, extreme west of the corridor, under construction. And then today, this is what it looks like. It's not vastly different. It's still out in pretty rural space between 2 urban areas. So we know that the urban environment is growing in on this interchange. But today, we don't have the space confinement issues that we have through the remainder of the corridor. But you just move a little bit east to Campbell Station. It's about 3 miles from that last interchange, and you can see what it looked like in the 1960s when they were finishing up construction and how rural this area was. And then you go to today and it's pretty well grown up right against the interstate. We have a really large retail area off of this interchange, and it experiences frequent delays and congestion and backup here. Moving just a little bit further east, about a mile from that Campbell Station interchange, you get to Level Road. Again, very rural when things were built. And you go to today's environment, and you can, as far as you can see in each direction, we have commercialization and urban growth. Everything you see here green is really just environmental features, wetlands, drainage features. They're still green. Everything else is paved over and got commerce going on every day. Move a little bit further east into Cedar Bluff. We have another reiteration of a very rural, very mundane interchange. And again, you see much of the same thing. Knoxville just overtook this corridor. It's where all the growth happened from the 60s to today. Everything moved out of Knoxville to west along this corridor. And then you get to Walker Springs, and you can see to the right of the page, we don't even have any roads going in that direction from this interchange. It just goes over to a parallel route, which we now call Kingston Pike, which is a very rural 2-lane road when the interstate was built. To today, roads going in every direction from this interchange, and you see the Kingston Pike that was a 2-lane rural road is now one of the heaviest commerce roads in East Tennessee. And then finally, Paper Mill. This is the location of the 212,000 cars a day. Very, very much still very rural when it was built. To today, not so much. We show this a lot just to prove the point that in the 50s, when the interstate was dreamed up, and it seemed like a good idea to put 2 interstates together, that one that goes completely from one side of the country to the other, and one that goes completely from the southern border of the country all the way to the northern part up to Canada. Seemed like a good idea because it was in the middle of nowhere. Traffic was a non-issue, and nobody lived there, right? But you can clearly see with the amount of traffic that come through here that the city of Knoxville overtook this very rural area and pretty much made it the financial hub of the city of Knoxville and where all the growth happened. Bottlenecks. So as I talked about, we went through several different iterations of projects after we went from the ultimate opening of 2 lanes in each direction. We went through several iterations of widening starting from downtown Knoxville in the east of the corridor, moving west all the way out west. And in some places we have widened to 4 lanes on each side of the interstate. Some places it's still 3 lanes on each side of the interstate. And then in others, it's 5 lanes on each side of the interstate. And as you know, as you do lane drops, that's one of the characteristic places to have a bottleneck, hence the sense necking down, right? Those cause congestion issues, delay, people slowing down, people have to merge in with each other when the lane saturation gets to the point to where people don't have good, clean, easy merge points. You start having people slowing down to make merges, and that just compounds itself into a congestion issue. And the state measures bottlenecks and delay across the state, and you will see that this corridor ranks number 8 in the state of Tennessee for congestion. So what I would add is, I mean, you start thinking highest traffic counts, but not necessarily the highest congestion rates. You see some more of those in Nashville than you see here, like I was saying earlier. The reason being is we've done a pretty good job of modernization through this corridor. So we have greased the skids, if you will, or lessened the friction values by the amount of modernization that we have done. But it has certainly caught up with us. Being number 8 is not necessarily the place we want to be, and we'd like to see improvements here. So that's why this project has come about, is to try to figure out how to address the congestion and safety issues through this 17-mile corridor. So this is a little bit of a map of the I-75, I-40, how it all comes together. I-75 flowing to the north, I-40 coming east to west, or west to east, and the 17 miles here. And this is the congestion area, quarter one of 2024. And you'll see Region 1, just the 24 counties that make up East Tennessee. The bottleneck report shows like 8 of the top 10 being in this corridor. So, like I say, you merge that much traffic into areas with bottlenecks, and you see congestion start happening. So and it just exacerbates itself when you start realizing that the amount of traffic that's coming into the corridor from the south is about 50,000 cars a day. And we also measure 50,000 cars a day going north out of Knoxville. So how do we go to 200,000 cars a day in the middle? The reason we have that issue is because we have a lot of local trips happening. So people who live in the area are jumping on the interstate at different places along this corridor. And it rises from on I-75, 50,000 cars a day, on I-40, about 50,000 cars a day. So there's 100,000 cars coming through here, but we're also adding about 100,000 cars worth of local trips happening through the corridor. So all that type of traffic data is really important to figure out how to best deal with the congestion that's here. But so 200,000 cars a day through the corridor and bottlenecks, and a lot of people coming in and out of the corridor at all these different exits and entrance points along the corridor means you have a lot of traffic movements where a lot of cars coming through, a lot of people getting on and off the interstate. You end up with people slowing down, differential speeds, and people trying to squeeze into tight spots to get in and out with the weaves, cause safety issues with traffic, and we start having wrecks. And here's all the bottleneck locations that I was talking about. So these are the locations where everything's starting to slow down. And you can almost guarantee when people are slowing down and people are trying to move into the corridor off of these local streets on these interchanges, that's where the wrecks start happening. A little more about the bottlenecks and the congestion that we see. These are the time frames through the day. We measure the average daily traffic, and you can see the dips in the morning for the AM peak, and then the prolonged dips through the afternoon and all the way out and through 6:30, 8 o'clock at night before traffic returns to normal speeds. A little bit of a heat map also shows the same thing with the speed differentials that go on during those time frames. The challenges for the corridor, high traffic volumes, bottlenecks. One of the key things I didn't speak about earlier is we have weigh stations here, two a weigh station eastbound and westbound. Again, when we installed those weigh stations in the 60s, it was an ideal place to do it. You're catching two interstates with one set of weigh stations in the middle of nowhere, and they have served us well for 50 years, but we have now they are a contributor to the issues that we have here. We have a huge percentage of trucks on most interstates throughout the country. They range from 4 to 8% truck traffic. On this corridor, is it being the crossroads of America with that interstate that runs east to west and an interstate that runs north to south throughout the country, and knowing that Memphis is the regional hub or the national hub for FedEx, and unloading of barges out on the Mississippi River and stuff coming from there through this area. Our truck percentage on this section of interstate is nearly 28%. So it's into 3 to 5 times the amount of most interstates around the country. So this weigh station ranks as top 3 weigh station in the country for volume, and at times is in certain years is ranked up almost as high as the highest volume weigh station in the country. So challenges, bottlenecks, high traffic volumes, people moving in and out of the corridor for local trips, and the introduction of 28% of those being trucks. The rolling geometry that we have and geology that we have in East Tennessee with some high grade percentages in certain parts of the corridor adds up to a not so ideal scenario. So that's the reason we have a project here to figure out what we're doing. Our project approach is to look at this corridor from front to back and see how to best do this. We have split this project into 2 ideas. Not 2 ideas, it's multiple ideas, but it's booked in by 2 ideas. To one end of the extreme would be, okay, we made a mistake at some time in the past and we decided to put these two interstates together for 17 miles. What could we do to split them apart? So we're looking at a potential relocated I-75 to make two interstates instead of two interstates, one interstate. As you can imagine, building a brand new interstate is relatively cost prohibitive, but it is one scenario, and we are studying what happens to traffic if we do that. How does the local usage use that if we do that? The other extreme of this bookend, if you would say, would be adding express lanes through the corridor. So paid option lanes, if you will, through the corridor. So that's the two extremes: relocated I-75, or the other extreme would be express lanes through the corridor. But then we're also studying what if we just make more improvements through the corridor, whether it be additional general purpose lanes to remove bottlenecks, additional interchange modifications that will further smooth traffic flow through here, and then maybe even separated exit lanes or CD, collector distributor roads, if you will. And I'll get into most of those options a little deeper here in just a few minutes. But the overall objectives, of course, for this is to review the existing and previous plans for the corridor. We have studied independent pieces of the corridor multiple times throughout the year, so we want to get a good history with the consultant that we have hired to analyze all of this through those existing reviews. We are doing complete survey of the corridor, not just survey of ground survey like most people think about, but it's also of conditions, assets through the corridor, what kind of condition our assets may be in, whether it be lighting assets, bridge assets, our intelligent transportation system assets, all those kinds of things. So it's not just survey, but it's also condition ratings on all those stuff. Excuse me. We're also identifying our right-of-way, all the utilities that may be in the corridor. Oftentimes, public lands are used for utilities as well, so they're living inside of our right-of-way for free. But when we have expansions or modifications, we of course have to deal with those utilities, and sometimes they're high-value things. Like we have TVA transmission lines through here, through the corridor. So if you run into one of those transmission towers, it might cost you $15–20 million to relocate it. So we have to have good understanding where those things are before we start coming up with alternatives, if you will. An important part of any transportation adjustment is an assessment of existing and future corridor traffic and regional traffic patterns. Again, this is an interstate. It's not just localized to a couple city streets. It's 17 miles and encompasses a plethora of city streets, and it's the crossroads of two interstates. So virtually everybody on 40 that wants to stay on 40 and everybody that's on 75 that wants to stay on 75 have to switch sides of the interstate somewhere through this corridor. So understanding how traffic uses it and what we anticipate the future growth to be will drive very much how we address the issues through the corridor. Evaluating safety along the corridor is always top priority. So whatever we come up with, we want to be as safe as possible. So we identify and evaluate needs and solutions based on traffic, but also based on the environment that we live in. How does it affect our cultural and environmental assets throughout the corridor? How does it impact communities? Do we separate communities with anything that we put in there? So we are identifying and evaluating those solutions all the time. And then we are, of course, developing multiple design options. I kind of described some of those already, but we have to understand how those design options affect the traffic patterns and the communities that we're working in. Environmental screenings, an important part of any of these types of projects. Obviously, it's a public project. It interfaces with public lands and places. It intersects with private properties and all those kinds of things, and different types of environmental or different levels of income in different areas. So you have higher income areas, lower income areas, and we have to evaluate and ensure that we're treating all of those different communities fairly. So that's called a PEL, Planning and Environmental Linkages Study. So that is part of this project as well, to make sure that we're in compliance with all federal laws and regulations. Constructability of the assets. It's one thing to come up with a great design, but if it's not something that you can implement, or it's going to cost you 5 times more than it should to implement it, that's definitely something we need to understand. To fully understand the cost of the project, we have to understand constructability. Of course, estimated project cost will be part of the equation as well. It's when you have multiple range of alternatives, they all cost different things, and we're looking for the best cost benefit out of the process. Obviously, cost will not always drive the decision making. We're not looking for the lowest cost implementation, but we're looking for the best value in most cases. And then we're also looking for recommendations on funding, financing, construction, and delivery options. Tennessee, if you're not aware, is a pay-as-you-go state. We're one of the few states in the country that is still debt-free. I think there's only 5 states that are debt-free on their infrastructure highway system, if you will, and we consistently rank in the top 5 in transportation network. So we're really proud of ourselves in that sense. Top 5 in transportation ranking, and we're one of only 5 states that are debt free. So we're really proud of that, and we'll obviously be looking at how we can do these things and try to remain debt free. Public involvement is always a big part of what we're trying to do. Again, we want to take public input on this corridor, understand how things are going. It's one thing to analyze traffic. It's also another thing to understand how these folks perceive it and how they feel about what it'll do to their communities if we make changes of any kind. So that public involvement and public meetings will be a crucial part of our process. Like I say, we had a previous study in the early 2000s about a relocated I-75, is what I'm calling it now. They called it a beltway back then. And we looked at 3 different alignments. When you see them there in magic marker, we had a green alignment, an orange alignment, and a blue alignment. We called them the orange, green, and blue routes. That didn't make it very far at that time, based on funding. We, being pay-as-you-go state, realized at that time we couldn't afford to build it, and toll facilities at that time were not something the state of Tennessee would do. So it just became financially something we weren't willing to bite off at that time. The environmental stuff that we are considering here, we have already fully built out a GIS mapping system for central data collection that includes multiple data sources: socioeconomic, natural environment, public lands, transportation infrastructure, the utilities I talked about earlier, and Knoxville's GIS data. So we have pulled a lot of data into this mapping system, so we know where the cemeteries are, where the churches are, all the cultural locations that we just can't hit, all the environmental things that would be showstoppers, whether it be a blue line stream or a cavern or something that we just can't mess with. We have all that stuff already mapped out as part of the survey work, but we have it in a KG or in a GIS mapping system to better understand and turn on different levels and turn them off where we're doing alternative analysis. And we're working on desktop surveys of those environmental features, even beyond that, pulling in stuff from TVA, TDEC, Department of Environment and Conservation, the Army Corps of Engineers. They have data as well that we're pulling into this system. Obviously, the initial part of that is just looking for those fatal flaw or showstoppers. If we can identify something that is absolutely something you can't hit or mess with, and we know any alternative that hits that area is just not worth chasing. Traffic data collection, which is the backbone of any civil engineering project on a roadway system, starts with the safety data. The RDS system, which is a radar detection system for vehicles, freight data. Like I mentioned, we know we were in the top, or in the 28% truck range here, and the scales that have top 3 scale volume in the country. We've used streetlight data. It's a data source for origin destination to understand how traffic moves through here. We all are running around with cell phones in our pockets, and we're doing most of our movements are being tracked at any given time, and this software knows how people move. They don't know who your individual IDs are, but they know that phones move. They know if you start a trip until that car's fully stopped and turned off, it logs those movements. So we know what the origin destination study shows. We know where people start their days and how they move through this corridor. Traffic counts is a big part of it. We have done an enormous amount of traffic data collection. You can see here through the corridor and everything around it, we had 181 total locations that we put in traffic counts. We did an 8-day count starting on a Saturday and ending the following Saturday. So we captured 2 Saturdays. And what's important about that in November is we were able to capture just a normal Saturday with no Tennessee football game and a Saturday with a Tennessee football game. University of Tennessee being in Knoxville, and at least 6 or 7 days a year, we have a football game in Knoxville, and that brings in an additional 100,000 people, 150,000 people into the city that day. So we felt it important to catch what those traffic days look like. We did 48-hour bidirectional counts at ramps at each one of these interchanges, and turning movement counts as well. The data collection has happened, but we're still in the process of completing the report to be able to back check and make sure that all the math adds at all the different locations, and that the transfers from one location to the next add, and we have congruent data. So all that is important to figure out peak periods and how heavy traffic is at all of these locations. So when you know what the counts are at certain locations, and you know what the percentage of vehicle movements are based on origin destination, you can start mapping out. If you put in say a relocated I-75, if people in the middle of the map there are moving to the south and getting on this corridor just to end up at another location a little bit north of the interstate, we would know based on those origin destination studies that percentage of people would probably use this new relocated I-75 and would come off of the corridor. So a lot of statistics and probability stuff going into this traffic analysis and understanding how people move and migrate through this corridor. Again, we talked about the bottleneck concerns earlier and the rankings and all that kind of stuff, how it plays here, and how it's further exacerbated by incidents in the corridor. Incidents contribute to 41% of the congestion here, and on an annual basis, we're seeing over 600,000 hours of delay. So 600,000 recorded hours of people sitting in traffic doing nothing or wasting their time. Safety through the corridor, the crash hotspots through the corridor. You can see we have 3 large ones. 9 of the top 20 within our region are located in this 17-mile corridor, and the top 6 of the top 20 are within the corridor as well. Statewide, that furthest one to the west ranks 5th in the state for safety concerns and crashes. We also see the crash data at each of the interchanges through this 17-mile corridor. And you see the busier the interchange, the more crashes that we see, the highest one being Paper Mill there, and that's where we see the most traffic. 212,000 cars a day at that interchange, and we see more crashes there because of more traffic, more turning movements, more people coming in and out of the interchange equals more safety concerns. Again, so many local trips, people merging into the corridor and right back out of the corridor just to go 2 exits or something like that, contributes to the amount of crashes here with the bottleneck issues that we have. A lot of traffic data here on the types of wrecks that we're seeing, rear ends being 10% higher than the interstate average in the state, and 20% higher than statewide average on our highways. So we know that the rear ends are up, but rear ends happen because of speed differentials, people changing speeds, cranking up to say 70 miles an hour and then right back to 50 and up to 70 and back to 50 or back to 45, 30, whatever it might be. As people are hitting those brakes, you end up with a lot more rear end wrecks in these congested scenarios. Angle crashes are higher as well. That can be attributed to the same as the sight and swaps there, with so many people coming in and out of the corridor. That's a lot of people merging in and out of traffic. And with the bottlenecks, you have a lot of merges as well. So when you have speed differentials and a lot of merging going on with small space because of the amount of traffic that's out there, you end up with a lot more side swap and angle crashes. To date, we have had visioning workshops where we have brought engineers to the table and planning folks to the table to say, hey, what kind of crazy ideas can we have here that we could further evaluate? We want to leave no stone unturned, and we want to consider all potential things that could improve this corridor. We had one on December 4th and one on January 14th of this past winter. So we have a lot of good ideas, a lot of different things that we're looking at. Again, we brought those engineers up to speed on reviewing of existing conditions, and then we used discussed issues that we saw through the corridor with mapping tools and those kinds of things. Design concepts, again, that come out of a lot of those workshops. The initial concepts focused on the I-40, I-75 main line. We looked at where could we add general purpose lanes. A general purpose lane is in Tennessee. I know throughout the country, a lot of states have express lanes. I know they're popular in Florida, Texas, North Carolina, here in the South, Atlanta. You have paid use lanes, express lanes, if you will. A general purpose lane is a lane that is there that you get to use for free. So do we want to add additional general purpose lanes through this corridor, and what would they look like? Where would we be removing bottlenecks, if you will? The other thing we've looked at heavily through here is CD roads, collector distributor roads. Those are very popular in places where you have a lot of people entering and exiting and using local trips through an interstate system. I've seen these used heavily in California and LA. You see them around the country in other varieties of ways. But we have also pushed through alignments that show where could we use CDs, collector distributor roads, and separate those local trips from the people who are just traveling through this corridor. Choice lanes is Tennessee's term for an express lane, a paid lane. We are also mapping and showing what those could look like. In a lot of cases with choice lanes and express lanes, they add interchanges through the corridors where that's the only option. If you're going to use that interchange, you have to use the choice lane. So that gives a different location for people to access the interstate than if they were going to enter general purpose lanes. Try to separate that traffic even on the local network. So we have done a lot of stuff looking at all those different things. We've looked at more interchange modifications. How can we better use these interchanges to have less frequent interactions with weaving and lane merges? Traffic data will allow for refinement as the traffic data gets fully realized. We start placing this into traffic modeling with alternatives. It will definitely point us in the direction we need to go. A few cross sections, or typical sections, if you will, that we are looking at. This is the what we would say on the main line I-70, I-75, I-40 corridor would be the maximum width that would be required. If we implemented CD lanes throughout the entire project, that's what you see on the outside. You'd have 2 to 3 lanes of CD lanes out there. The existing general purpose lanes are either 3 or 4 lanes wide. That's the 36 to 48 that would be in the middle. And then you'd have choice lane, or not in the middle, it's in the middle on each way, but in the middle of the cross section, you see the choice lanes, which would be 2 lanes in each direction. So if we were to implement this full system of CD roads, choice lanes, and general purpose lanes, we would see our maximum width through this corridor being 282 feet of pavement width. That gets you from a potential shoulder to shoulder on the outside. That does not include what does the drainage do on the outside of that. How does it taper out to a river or a creek or a neighborhood, right? So you have side slopes and all those kinds of things, potential retaining walls that would go outside that 282 feet. But we know this is the maximum width roadway that we would probably be looking at through this corridor. We step down from there and say, okay, well, maybe we can eliminate some of that width by going to what we term auxiliary lanes, or lanes that just go from one interchange to the next, but they travel right beside the general purpose lanes. But we still have a choice lane in here. We have shrunk the potential corridor down to 270 feet wide instead of the 285 that we were talking about. So we save 15 feet by doing that. And then we further look at what if we just add the 2 choice lanes in each direction. We end up with a 246 feet. So again, we more narrow the potential cross section. What if we add general purpose lanes and CD roads, but no choice lanes? That's the typical section we would be looking at there. What if we go collector distributor road in each direction and no choice lanes? That's what we'd looking at, another 250 foot cross section. And then what if we just add general purpose lanes to eliminate bottlenecks? We could stay as small as 214 feet. But again, in this scenario, we have limited capacity, but we have removed bottlenecks, which will obviously improve traffic flow and less people pumping brakes as they're trying to merge in from a bottleneck. So schedule, we're looking, like I say, those are the plethora of options that we're looking at, bookend, if you will, with the relocated I-75, choice lanes on the other end, and every other option in between. The schedule for this project, as we're marching through, looks a little bit like this. This is about a month-old schedule at this point, but we kicked off this work back in, like I say, with traffic data collection in the first week of November in 2024. Data collection continued, visioning workshops in December and January, working on public involvement plans and project management plans in January and into February. The data collection report has come out since then that actually shows how traffic is being used in the February timeframe. 10-year plan input is Tennessee, like I say, being a pay-as-you-go state. We publish every year what we expect to spend our money on for the next 10 years. So a lot of this information is going to be feeding into the 10-year plan. So we did supply data input into the 10-year plan this year, which just got released based off the governor's budget this past week. But we don't anticipate seeing projects from this study and show up until next year, because we obviously don't know what the solution is at this point. As we march into the middle of Q2, right here, you see a public meeting number 1 that was supposed to happen at the end of April. Right now, we think that's shifted into the June timeframe. But we have already started, like I say, interchange alternatives, way station alternatives. We're looking to move those way stations out of the corridor that I talked about. They're very problematic, as all of these 28% of trucks on 200,000 cars are trying to move in and out of way stations. We need to take that weave out of this corridor. So we're studying alternate locations for way stations to be. We are studying the managed lane design through the corridor. All that to be said, we'll be taking public input in the middle of the summer. evaluating alternatives and project prioritization based on constructability, cost, and how they actually impact traffic coming in the August timeframe, and we'll be finalizing those alternatives in September. We will have second round of public meetings in October to go out and show what data we have collected, what alternatives we looked at, and what we think best accomplishes the goals of the project there in October. And then the finalized PEL report, the Planning Environmental Linkage Report, will be published in December into January. All that to say, the governor's budget, being a pay-as-you-go state, they start working on refining that in October. It ends up being complete in the April timeframe. So we want to have alternatives looked at and some good ideas about how we want to attack this corridor come October. That's kind of a milestone spot in the schedule. So again, very important project for not just the region, not just Knoxville, but also the state of Tennessee. Like I say, being the crossroads of America to some point. East Tennessee is within a day's drive of 2/3 of the population in the country, and is a very popular, believe it or not, tourist area. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park is just, about 45 minutes from this corridor. And if you're not aware, that is the most visited national park in the country by a long shot. And Tennessee football games, the city of Knoxville, the daily trips are going on here, and the amount of truck traffic that is going from Memphis all the way through Knoxville up into the Carolinas, and then even further north up I-81 going into the Virginia, Maryland, DC, New York, Pennsylvania areas is a vital part of not just Tennessee, but the country. With that, I think that covers where we're at today. I'm absolutely open to any comments, questions.
It was a very good presentation, Dexter. This is Brad Nichols. I was very impressed about the data, the degree of data analysis and statistics and probability that you were using, tracking cell phone beginning destinations to ending destinations to model the traffic flows.
Yep.
You guys are sophisticated.
I dare say that we try to stay on the cutting edge, but the traffic and transportation engineering industry is far more complex and far more data driven than I think Joe Q Public understands. It's definitely a science, but there's a little bit of an art behind it as well. You've got to understand people and understand environments. It's not just the statistics itself. So you have to merge both of those worlds.
So
if anyone would like to pose a question in the chat, I can read it for you, or just unmute yourself and ask a question directly. Go ahead, Larry. Sorry about that.
well, that's right. So one of the things that I find interest, whether it's here or other places I've lived, how do you project into the future? Because a lot of things I've been here 17 years now in Knoxville, and I see some of the improvements made basically just gets us back up to par with what the traffic is, and then the next month things are, we're already over capacity. So
Yeah.
in these
Yeah.
tools, how do you project that into the future? Just
Yeah, I mean, that
you're
is
doing
that
to-
that it, yeah, we absolutely do that. We try to we have a design year with the implementation year that you're trying to project traffic data on, but you're also looking at a design year, which is usually 20 years into the future. So you want to make sure that the improvements that you do, you see that benefit for 20 years before you see any degradation. That's the goal of that
Okay.
traffic projection. We do multiple things. It's based on historic stuff. It's based on historic growth rates around the area. It's also based on projected growth rates. Like if you know that like out in West Tennessee, they're out there building today, Blue Oval City, which is Ford has made a huge investment in where their battery plant is and where they're going to build most of their electric cars out around the Memphis area in a very rural area. We know that that investment in that location is going to grow into a whole new city where they're at. So if you know you have those kinds of developments happening in your area, you apply those kinds of growth factors into your model. And then you also are looking at, in an interstate scenario, you're looking at the growth at your neighbors, not just in the area of the influence of where the work is, but also in this case, you're going to be looking to the south at Chattanooga, how much growth's happening there, even regionally, Atlanta, Birmingham, over into South Carolina, North Carolina to the east, Lexington to the north. What kind of growth is happening there, and what kind of trends are you seeing in industry movement, freight movement, all those kinds of things, and then those different factors get applied to the growth rates of the traffic, and I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of times we're right, but it's hard to predict exactly how things are going to go, how the economy is going to affect things.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely not perfect, but we put a lot of work into trying to understand it, if you will.
Yeah, now this isn't a question, but it's an architectural feature that last time when you're coming in from the east, coming in west towards the city, you had you put some architectural features in some of the overpasses. So I don't know if it just said "Welcome to Knoxville" or just Knoxville, or
Yeah, I think it just said the city, and it just says Knoxville on it.
yeah, that is the coolest thing. It's kind of like rather than just a lump of concrete, it just makes a really nice statement about. Well, it's just not concrete. They put architectural features really cool from my viewpoint.
Yeah, and in the public space, that's not always something we can do. I mean, we have limited funds, and I think right there is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is in the winter when the trees are not looking the best, and some of the landscape is not looking the best. But yeah, that's one location where we were able to do that. It takes environmental, the environment's not just the trees and the bunnies and the crickets and the fish, but it's also the human environment in which we live, and context and understanding of all those things to apply an ideal location for aesthetics to be part of the equation. With public funds and they being limited as they are, we talk about projects being $1 billion to Joe Q Public. $1 billion sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the transportation needs across the state of Tennessee and across the country for that matter, that B is not that big of a word. Billion is not that big of a word in the big scheme of things. So being a good steward of those monies and providing the best transportation improvements that we can with that money is being a good steward. And unfortunately, the aesthetic piece gets pushed to the background sometimes because of the funding scenario. But when the context and everything comes to the forefront and the right opportunity at the right time, we do get an opportunity such as this one occasionally.
Do we have any other questions?
Okay. The section of I-40 that was destroyed during Hurricane Helene, do you have a projected date when those repairs will be complete? I came through there Easter weekend. They have one lane open. So do you have a projected date on that?
Y'all want to see me work just a little bit? Let's see. I think this is super cool and interesting that you brought it up. Take me just a second to get there. Of course, I'm a traffic nerd and an engineering nerd, but for those that aren't familiar with Hurricane Helene and what it did to East Tennessee, it dumped 32 inches of rain in North Carolina, which is a border state of ours, and the rivers got up and tore up a lot of stuff. And right here on I-40, I only have images of the Tennessee piece. but the river that runs right along the interstate really created havoc and tore up the interstate in the state of Tennessee, but even more so in North Carolina. But to the point there, you can kind of see that we have traffic in one lane each direction, because what is traditionally the eastbound side got washed out. You can see we have equipment down here on the slope along the river trying to rebuild it as we speak. Let me see here. Trying to give you a before and after. Okay. So this is before the storm, interstate coming through here. And the after is that the eastbound lanes are gone through this section. The river got up and washed it out. But to the point, the Tennessee side is much further along than the North Carolina side. North Carolina is much worse shape than we are. We think in Tennessee that we'll have it back to 2 lanes each direction by the end of the year, into 2025. But we are hearing from North Carolina that it could take an additional year to year and a half beyond the Tennessee timeframe to get North Carolina taken care of.
And to show the amount of water that came through those rivers, that the river in Normal is like 100 feet below the freeway.
Yes, yeah. And
It's
it got
way down there.
Yeah, it got way up. Way up. It was an extreme event for sure. We've had emergencies in the state of Tennessee. We've had this section of roadway wash out a little bit in our history, but it got crazy. They had a dam in North Carolina on this river that was on the verge of failing. We were extremely blessed that did not happen. The amount of not just damage, but lives lost that would have happened through here had that dam actually collapsed, would have been extreme. But it's my understanding that it was really close to happening. So, but as such, that dam is currently damaged. It has a lot of free flow for the river going through there right now. So in our repair efforts, every time we get a little 2-inch rain or 1.5-inch rain over in North Carolina, this river has become really flashy and it tears up a lot of the work that we have already done. Whereas traditionally that dam's there and it slows the water down and we don't have those issues. So a lot of challenges. The state of Tennessee has a lot of damages. We had quite a bit of loss of life during this event, but North Carolina, our friends to the east, our neighbors, and in a lot of cases, family have it probably 10 times worse than the state of Tennessee does. It was extreme.
Do we have any other questions? Anybody in the chat?
So Dexter, it's an awesome presentation. Thank you. I kind of had a question. You talked about the regional partners, if you will, of all the different states and cities that you got to deal with. Do you find that in your profession it's more of a collaborative thing where you guys really are talking to each other all the time about your growth and your projects, or is it more of a Knoxville's kind of squinting at Birmingham and they're squinting at you and you guys are sort of guessing?
I mean, in the industry, I think we're pretty collaborative as far as transportation goes. To say the cities aren't in competition with each other, that definitely happens. Transportation is the crossroads of growth in every community. When we work with either it be state recruitment efforts trying to bring industries or to the state, or city folks doing the same thing. There's, whether a recent movement to the state of Tennessee was Smith and Wesson, right? So when they were looking, they had firms identified that said, hey, let's relocate out of Massachusetts. We need to find a new home. Transportation becomes a big part of that. They're hunting for new places to land, and most of the time us TDOT doesn't know who may be coming or trying to land in our area, but because they work under fake names or whatever, but those competitions are real. They're looking at lots of different areas, and transportation is a big key to that. What can we do to make lands or access to lands in different cities, communities available? And TDOT finds themselves at that table quite frequently. Obviously, environmental development, I mean, not environment, economic development in any state and community is a big part of what transportation is there to do. And it's interesting that when you're in those scenarios, those cities and counties and states are definitely not being friendly with each other. We're not talking about it to each other. But when it comes to transportation modeling and idea sharing about how to do interchanges different, how to do traffic projections, we're all in it for the same reasons. We're all in it together. The federal government mandates that we do it. We have stuff much like you guys do here with the AACE. We have AASHTO, American Association of State Highway Officials. It's a very active group, and we have committees that meet all the time, interstate committees from all the different states that are meeting on how to better tackle transportation needs and model traffic and all those different kinds of things all over the place.
No, excellent. Good to hear. Thank you. And so a follow up to that's that you're benchmarking. It's also just as collaborative, right? If they find something that works, you at least get the chance to model that and see if it would work in your area the same as, someone else's, right?
Yes. Yeah. A fun one to talk about is diverging diamond. I don't know where all of you folks live or if you've been lucky enough to run into a diverging diamond interchange, but I have one here, an example real quick. This is 407 interchange. That's interchange in Sevier County. These have started popping up all over the country, but in 2005, they didn't exist anywhere. And I think Missouri was the first one to try it. If you're unfamiliar with a diverging diamond, if you're getting off the interstate, instead of coming up here to a red light and everybody have to wait their turn to turn left to go across a divergent and then go through another intersection once you get across the interstate, which is a typical diamond interchange. A divergent diamond, DDI we call it, is a new type of interchange in 2005. Missouri again was the first one to try it. If you're coming up this exit ramp and you want to go to the north, you immediately merge into a road that's driving what feels like on the wrong side of the road. And then you get to this side and you cross over at one intersection. So instead of coming through here and trying to go to the north and have to go through two intersections, you only have to go through one. And conversely, if you're coming up State Route 66, you want to go west on I-40, you go through one intersection and cross over to the other side, and you have free flow onto the interstate. So between the two intersections, we have swapped sides of the road. What that does is change the amount of conflict points and the amount of delay that's introduced through one of these interchanges.
Yeah. Is this
much more efficient.
407?
This is 407, yes.
Okay. That is the weirdest thing coming north
Mhm.
and then getting on I-40. I go,
Yep.
someone's going to hit me.
Yep.
It's the weirdest
Yep.
feeling.
It is a weird feeling, but it's very efficient. It moves people. It's unbelievable people mover. And in 2005, they didn't exist. Missouri was the first one to try it out. We built one on a non-interstate setting in Maryville in late 2000s. We built this one, I think, in 2015 timeframe, and we built another one in Johnson City. But these are popping up all over the country. So this is an example of something new that happened and that has really exploded across the country.
Yep, that really helped that exit.
Yeah.
So I've taken that exit for many years. So
No, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, we actually just had one off Interstate 20 in Grovetown. That's a small version of that, but so yeah, hats off to everyone who gets creative. That's kind of like a engineer's wet dream in some ways, right? You just look at that and you're like, it's cool. You only get to normally see that kind of thing on like city building video games. It's kind of fun to see one in real life, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And for those that are interested in the lower right-hand corner, I think that's Bucky's, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. That's the,
250 gas pumps, something like that.
yep.
Crazy.
Diverging Diamond, is that the name of that
Yep.
type?
Yep. Diverging diamond interchange, DDI.
I will have to share that with my father because I didn't know that's what it was called.
Mhm.
And we drove through that one that is in Grovetown, and it works very well, but it was very unnerving as
Yep.
we were learning about it.
Yep.
For the
Just
reasons we just discussed.
Follow the lines and you'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to trust.
Trust the designers.
Yeah.
Any other discussion or questions? Well, this has been a very engaged group.
Yeah.
We're so grateful that you came and spoke with us, Dexter.
No problem.
Great talk. Well, for the purposes of the video, I'm just going to stop the recording here in a moment. And I just wanted to thank you for giving of your time and your expertise and blowing me away about all the data you guys process. This has been a very interesting topic for me. With that, I want to thank you and say goodnight.
Thank you.
That's where we'll hit pause for the recording purposes. And now I'd like to take over the share. You are welcome to stick around, Dexter, but we're just going to do a really, really brief share here.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and sign off. I'll let you guys
Okay.
have it.
Good night, Dexter.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you,
night.
Thank you
sir.
very much, Dexter.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Can you all see my screen? Should just say AACE.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Let me figure out how to get over there so I can navigate through it. Okay, how does one do that? Make that smaller. There we go. All right. So all I wanted to show you was we elected new officers. You can see them on the screen. And Larry and I basically switched jobs. That's how the votes came down. Everybody else held the same. We've got John on secretary, David treasurer, Sam, director of programs. Charles is new. He was an adjunct member of the board last year and decided to take over for Ariana, director of education. Gary on membership, Mike on communications, and past president is Armando, who is the reason that we got Dexter tonight, because he was very interested in getting a speaker from Tennessee Department of Transportation, which is a good topic. So that's all I have on that. And then we go the other direction.
Hey, Brad,
Yes.
may I add something to that? One of the things is once you become certified, you need to be always, getting points to be recertified in 3 years. And serving on the board is one good way, not only be involved in AACE, but it's a easy way to pick up points for your recertification. And we're always looking for people that this is a set number here, but we have if a person is interested, we have additional committees where we always look at forming. And like you mentioned, and I can't pronounce the word, but Charles was an adjunct. I probably didn't say it right, but anyway, that's always point worthy also.
Exactly. And we do a call at least twice a year. The next one's coming up in June. Although if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to any of us and express your interest, and we'd like to get you involved. The more that we can create community together and have interaction, I think our business acumen collectively goes up. We're stronger together than we are separately. And I wanted just to show you one last thing, and that is Carter Hopkins is going to come speak to us in September. We're going to take the summer off. The board will continue to work, but
Yeah, we're not taking the time off.
We're not taking time off, but we're not going to run section meetings just because traditionally we've had trouble getting people to come visit them. So we'll come back strong in September. Carter Hopkins is the Chief Financial Officer for SRNS at the Savannah River site on the M&L contract, and he's going to speak on how to manage indirect rates to control costs, a CFO's perspective. I helped them develop the flyer for that today, and looks like it's going to be a very interesting topic. So I would encourage you to come join us. And that's all I have. Anybody have any final words before we drop off for the evening?
None. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Well, thank you very much. Y'all have a great evening, and we'll look for you next time. Good night.